Shalom. Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua B'Katham to the brothers. Shalom. Yahweh Shema Alathan Ba'ashim Yahushua to the sisters. Alright. We are the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yohana. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite group, nor any other Christian organization. Alright. Make sure when you sign in, put your name, city, and state for attendance, alright? Alright, make sure you put your name, city, and state. Do not forget to put your name, city, and state. Alright? Alright. Let's get everything set up here. If you guys have any questions, make sure you put it into the live chat as well. We'll get started in a few. Alright? If you guys have any questions, make sure you put it into the chat, alright? So we'll be going over today's lesson. We're going to go over Daniel. Alright? We're going to be going over Daniel. Alright? We're going to be in Daniel chapter 6. We may have heard this story before. Alright? We may have heard this one through. You probably heard this story before, right? But it also involves our history, all right? Most is very involved in our history, all right? So, can anybody tell me, what do they remember about Daniel? Anybody? What do we know about Daniel? Right, today's talking about the lion's den. So what do we know about Daniel? Does anybody remember about Daniel? Does anybody remember learning about Daniel? Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody remember? Anybody else have a recollection about Daniel in the lion's den? One Akwaf said La'ah. Most on Christ. Okay. Most High Christ. All right. Okay. I Okay, so okay, la'ah. Okay, so today's topic, right? Today's lesson is talking about Daniel in the lion's den, right? Now we may have heard about Daniel, all right. If you ever, okay, you may have heard this if you were Christian in the world, or if you were, within the Catholic Church in the world. You may have heard or maybe being taught in, I want to say in Sunday school. Usually in Sunday school, something around that. When it comes to Sunday school, they teach about Daniel in the lion's den, right? How Daniel survived in the den of lions. So what happened was, if you were a Christian, if you were a Catholic, you probably may know this story, all right? You probably remember it very well. Well, maybe not too well, because, this story was mostly taught to children. And, of course, you get taught this story as a child, and then when you get older, when you're a Christian, when you get older, when you're a Catholic, when you get older, you kind of forget this story, and you kind of throw it in the back of your head, but you know remnants of this story. You know remnants of this history that's been recorded in the Bible about Daniel being thrown in the den of lions, all right? So this topic is going to be about Daniel in the lion's den, right? Or the lion's den, right? We're going to be focused on Daniel chapter 6, right? And we're going to talk about how important it is to serve the Lord. It's very, very important to understand, right, to serve the Lord, all right? It's something that we have to understand. It's very, very important to understand this, all right? Very, very important. It's it's so important to serve the Lord, all right? Okay, Most High in Christ. Okay, yeah, Khan, this is a very common story that's always taught in the Christian church. This is always a common story that has been taught in Catholic Mass, right? So it's a very well-known common story. So any Akim, any Akwafian, you may have been taught this very, very long ago. It's probably not something that may have stuck in our heads or in our minds or in our thoughts. But if you think about it a little, it might come back to memory. It's not something we may remember. You know what I'm saying? But now we're going to focus. We're going to really go into detail. Unlike the Christian church, Daniel in the lion's den, when you learn it in the Christian church, Daniel in the lion's den, when you learn it in Catholic Mass, they watered down. They absolutely watered down this recorded history, right? They water it down. They don't really teach it to us. They don't really break it down how it's supposed to be broken down. Like there's so many key parts and variables when learning about Daniel. When it's like even from Daniel chapter 1 all the way, I want to say Daniel I think it goes up to chapter 9, if I'm not mistaken, either 8 or 9, right? Nope, I don't think it goes to 10, but for sure 8 or 9, around those, right? From Daniel chapter 1 and up, right? Or I should say, right, from Daniel chapter 1 and up. It's such an important book to read. It's such an important book to know about, because it talks about the history of the Jews. Like Daniel, does anybody even know the time periods that Daniel lived in? Like, this is something that we have to talk about. This is history. Daniel lived in a time period. Salakia, my voice cracks. Salakia, Daniel, the prophet Daniel, he lived in a time period, in a time frame. Does anybody actually even know? Anybody want to give a guess the age or the time frame, right, that Daniel lived in? Does anybody know? Right. Exactly. So Daniel lived during the times of before Christ. All right. Daniel lived during the time of the Babylonian Empire. I don't want to say the Babylonians. The reign of the Babylonians, right? During the time frame of the reign of the Babylonians when it came to the Assyrians, all right? So he lived during the time of the ruler King Nebuchadnezzar, all right? So Daniel lived during this time, all right? He also, we're going to get into it, all right? But we're going to get into it. But he lived during the time of Nebuchadnezzar, all right? Okay. And right, it was before Christ. All right. Now remember, this is around from 620 BC to 538 BC. He also lived this is during the time frame. So from 620 BC and 538 BC, around the frame of the rulership of Nebuchadnezzar the Assyrian, right? During that time, and partially during the time of the Persian and Medes Empire, Daniel was alive. Daniel lived during this time. Now, this is something that we also have to focus on too as well. This is why we say over and over and over again, the Bible is a history book. The Bible has history within its own. It focuses, now, of course, the Bible focuses on the history of a certain race of people, right? That's all it is. The Bible has history in it, but it focuses on the history of a certain race of people. And that race of people are the Israelites. That race or that nation of people that the Bible focuses on, right? The history that it focuses on is about the Jews, right? It's the history of the Jews. It's the history of the Israelites. So just like in any country, any nation, in any race, whatever you want to call it, they record their history. And of course, the books that they record about their history is going to focus on them. Will their books mention other nations of people? Absolutely. Because other nations of people may have been involved in their history, right? Other countries may have been involved in their history. Just like in America. America has its own history books. America has its own laws, rules, and regulations, and etc., etc. And when they accumulate all of this and put it together, and they put it into their history, and they put it into a book, and they write it on paper, right? The focus is about how America was established. Now, when you read in these history books, if there's any left, because in the state of Virginia, they actually took out history out of the curriculum, by the way. In the state of Virginia, history is no longer in the curriculum, right? I just want to let everybody know that. So if you live in the state of Virginia and your children go to school in the state of Virginia, they took history out of the curriculum, which is bizarre, right? And what makes it so bizarre and so evil and so wicked, by the way, on a sidebar, is because the state of Virginia has so much history alone when it comes to the establishing of America, which also involves our history when it comes to us being enslaved, and when it talks about slavery, in the slaughter, in the murder of the Native Americans, of the Pequot and the Cherokee and the Blackfoot and the Seminoles and etc., etc., right? Virginia has all of that history, but they took history out of their curriculum. Now, the Akwaf asks, how and why is that? Well, how? Well, Virginia is a Commonwealth state. And then two, why is that? Is because they're trying to water down history, because they know history is something very important. History, and knowing history allows you to hold on to things in the past. It is a human custom to hold things that are from the past. It's always been a human custom to remember the things of the past. So if you take history, right, and you wipe it away, you're not going to be able to remember, right? You're not going to really remember the past. There are things that America does not want everyone to know or to remember, like slavery, like the mass murder and genocide of the Native Americans, right? Etc., etc. Things like that, Aqua. if that answers your question. So now, Salakia, I don't know about no history at all, right? I don't know about no history at all. I gotta double check that. Akwaf, I gotta check that. But they did take history out of the curriculum. Now, if I most likely look into it, I'm sure will there be history? Yes, but it's not mandatory. All right, 9 times out of 10, when you take something out of the curriculum, it just means it's not mandatory, right? That's all it is. You don't have to have history to pass. That's really all that means. So when you take something out of the curriculum in school, it doesn't mean it's not being taught. It just means it's not mandatory for you to pass that grade. All right, everybody understands that, and that's what it means to take something out of the curriculum. All right. So math and science is part of the curriculum. If they wanted to take math out of the curriculum, which God forbid they ever do that now, but if they take math out of the curriculum, math would still be taught in school, but you do not need math to pass or to graduate. That's all that really means. But history is no longer needed to pass. Is history still probably being taught? Yes. Are there history books being constantly rewritten and re-advised and etc. like that to water down their history to the children? Yes, that's most likely what's happening. All right. All right. But now, in any nation, they have their own history, right? To go back to what I was saying. Now, just like any other nation, the nation of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the race of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, which are the Israelites, which are the Jews, we have our own history book, and that involves the Bible. The Bible records history. All right? Like I said before, in America's history books, you will find other nations and other countries being involved, right? And be found in their history books, right? That's not abnormal. That's actually very normal. But but just like the Bible, right? In the Bible, the history is focused about the Israelites and the Jews, but you will hear about other nations and other countries, etc., other races of people that are involved in our history. All right? All right? Everybody understands that, so, all right? So now let's get to it. Let's go to Daniel chapter 6, all right? Well, let me see. Let me see where I want to start. Salakia. I might just go to Daniel chapter 5, all right? I might just go to Daniel chapter 5. For 1 second. All right. Yeah, I'm going to go to, okay. I'm going to give a backdrop. So let's go to Daniel chapter 5. Let's go to Daniel chapter 5. All right. We're going to go to Daniel chapter 5. And we're going to go down to verse 31. All right. All right. Yeah, we're going to go to verse 31. All right. Daniel. All right. Okay. Okay, actually, we're going to go to verse 30. Daniel chapter 5, verse 30. So, in the night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain. Okay, so with that being said, in the night was Belshazzar. Now, Belshazzar, he was literally the son, so he was the son, all right? He was the son of Nebuchadnezzar, all right? So he was the son of Nebuchadnezzar, all right? So Belshazzar, he was the son of Nebuchadnezzar, which was during this time the king of the Babylonians, all right? All right, he was the son. So he came into rulership, and in the night, Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, he was slain, all right? The reason why it says Chaldeans, all right? The reason why it says Chaldeans, because Chaldea is actually a place, a landmass found in the Mesopotamia area, and that's where the Assyrian Empire was known to be during that time. All right. So this is roughly around 537 BC. Well, I should say 530. I want to say 539 BC to around the time frame of 538 BC. All right. Okay. If you did not know, just for a reference, just on the sidebar, all right, a lot of people may not know this, but BC goes from low to high, while AD goes from BC goes from high to low. All right. So the higher the number is, right, the later it is, right, and then the lower the number is, the earlier it is. So in BC, 1000 BC, right, is far later, right, in the past than 500 BC, right? It works like that. So it goes from 1000 to 1, right? So in BC, when you're reading BC, right, when you're talking about history, BC goes from high to low. As in AD, it starts from low to high. So the lowest numbers are actually farther in history or later in history. Unlike how it is in BC, the bigger the number, it's farther and later in history. All right? If anyone did not know that. All right? So this is roughly around 539 BC to 538 BC. All right? Now, this was, like I said, this was during the time of the Babylonians, all right, during the time of King Nebuchadnezzar, all right. That was during this time frame, all right. So, Belshazzar, in verse 30, he was slain, all right. Verse 31, and Darius, the Median, took the kingdom, being about 62 years old, all right. So it says Darius the Median, all right? So if you don't know, all right, this is, okay, Darius, he comes from the line of Ahasuerus, all right? This is right here, this is the time frame of the beginning of the Persian and Medes Empire, okay? So this is around the time of the Persian and Medes Empire, all right? The Persian and Medes Empire, these are your Elamites. These are your East Indians, all right? So the nation of Elam in the Bible, E-L-A-M, right? Elam. That, they would be known as the East Indians that we know today, all right? This is their history right here, This is partial, right? This is partially their history in our records, in our books, all right? And Darius, comes from the line of Ahasuerus, which was a Persian and Medes. He was a Persian. All right. These nations existed in history. This is something that we have to understand. Like, these people are real. These people existed. Like, the Bible isn't something that was made up. Like, because of the Christian church and because of the Catholic Mass and what they teach in the Bible, so like not in the Bible, what they teach about the Bible and how they explain the Bible, That's why we have a lot of non-believers today. And that's why there's a lot of people that rather worship science and the stars and believe in Geminis and Sagittariuses and Cancers and Leos and Capricorns and etc. etc. The reason why we have so much of that in the community today, the reason why we have so much of that in the Black, Hispanic, and Native American community is because of how the Christian church and how the Catholic Mass teaches and goes about teaching the Bible, right? It causes confusion when they teach it, and it makes you not want to believe that it's real. A lot of Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans that become quote-unquote conscious and they open up their quote-unquote third eye, the reason why they believe in science so much is because the Christian church and the Catholic Mass, right, made the Bible unbelievable. They made the Bible unbelievable. They made the Bible into a fairy tale. That's why a lot of brothers and sisters that become conscious and quote-unquote third eye opening and etc., they don't believe in Christ because the Christian church and the Catholic Mass, they turned the Bible into a fairy tale. They turned it into like a kid's book. That's why, like the Lions, Daniel and the Lion's Den is a child's book. Now, the Daniel and the Lion's Den is a children's book now. You can literally go into a bookstore, into a library, and buy a book about Daniel and the Lion's Den. And it will be colorful, and I think Daniel's probably wearing like a purple or yellow toga, right? Which is like only worn during the Roman Empire, by the way, when he was when he was in the Persian Medes and in the Babylonian Empire time, right? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like it causes confusion. It doesn't make any sense. Like this is a child's book now, even though Daniel in the Lion's Den, right? It's really important. So like I don't want to give you too much about already because I want to break it down. So I really can't say too much right now because I want the scriptures to talk. But if you go into a bookstore, by the way, or some library, you'll see Daniel wearing some Roman toga and some flip-flops, right? Which is in the Roman Empire, even though he lived during the Persian Medes in the Babylonian Empire under Nebuchadnezzar and then Darius. It doesn't make any sense, right? That causes confusion, right? But if you don't realize that, you'll forever be lost. So a lot of our brothers and sisters, right, the reason why they don't believe in the Bible as they should and believe in the Most High as they should, because the Christian church and the Catholic Mass, they turned the Bible into a fairy tale, a story that doesn't make any sense at all. All right. Now, a lot of brothers and sisters, we all been there at one point, but then because of the Isupk, Barakatah Yahweh Yahushai, for the Most High raising up Commanding General Yohana to rule over Israel and to rule over the Black, Hispanic, and Native American community in building us up and actually teaching us the truth about the Bible. He made it make sense. The Isupk is going to make the Bible make sense. We're going to make you actually believe and make it real because it's real. These people existed. This is history. It happened. It's not something we're making up. We're literally telling you right here, these are the people in the Bible. You can use your Google machines and look up Nebuchadnezzar, and he's an actual king during the Babylonian Empire. You can look up Darius. That's a king in the empire. If I'm not mistaken, they made a movie about Darius. If I'm not mistaken, there's like some movie or some documentary about Darius, which is a Persian and Medes king. All right, he was a king during the Persian and Medes Empire, the Persian Empire, right? The Persians, right? If you could probably look that up. I believe there's a movie created about him. There's a movie called 300 that even talks about. That's later in though, right? That's kind of not later, I should say, but a little earlier than this, of course. But they made a movie called 300 that lets you know Persians existed, and they were an actual nation of their own, right? But they came out of the Persian and Medes Empire. All right, that's all. All right. So now Daniel chapter 5 verse 31. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. So 60 meaning 30. All right, 60 meaning 30. All right, and then 2 years old. So the Lord to say he was 32 years old. So he was roughly around 30. He was 32 years old when he took the kingdom. All right, and this is now the beginning of the Persian and Medes. All right. Daniel chapter 6, verse 1. So now we're in Daniel chapter 6, if everyone's following along. All right. If anyone has any questions, by the way, please ask. All right. Bubba Kwashab, please ask your questions. All right. It's a very important class to learn today, by the way. All right. Daniel chapter 6, verse 1. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes. So Darius, he set over 120 princes, all right? So a prince is someone that's in power, someone that has an authority, right? Someone that has a position of authority, a position of power. So when you read the Bible and you see like princes and eunuchs and things like that, these are positions of power, these are positions of authority, and etc., etc., all right? This is what we have to understand too as blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans. Every nation on this earth, right? Every nation, every race, every country on this earth has a government of their own. And they've always put certain people into power, right? And they put certain people into authority to help rule their nation, to help rule their country, right? To help rule their people, right? We did the very same thing as Israelites. My previous classes, I think I went over that. You can find that in Deuteronomy chapter 1. All right. You can find that. I want to say Deuteronomy chapter 1, how Moses, Salaki, not Deuteronomy chapter 1. I think it is chapter 1, verse 16. But in the book of Deuteronomy, it talks about how Moses, right, was setting up the nation of Israel and how he appointed different chief and officers and generals and captains to help rule the nation. Well, guess what? Darius right here, of Persian and Medes, right, empire, he's doing the very same thing. The Lord doesn't, okay, this is why we have to understand, this is why the Christian church is so evil and why the Catholic Mass is so evil. Like, when it comes to the Bible, we need the Bible and to learn this history, and not just anyone else's history, but our own history, to establish a government of our own. Even if it's a small city or a small town, we need the Bible to do it, right? Because if we try to do it our own way, it doesn't work. No one in their right mind, no human and no other people in their right mind would establish a government of their own or a city or a town of their own how black people are trying to do it now. It doesn't make any sense. No one has ever established a government or a town or a nation by protesting Black Lives Matter. Listen, the Persian and Medes did not establish their kingdom right here by Persian and Medes Lives Matter. It didn't happen like that. We just read in Daniel chapter 5, verse 30 to 31, right? Someone had to go in order for the Persian and Medes empire to be established. All right? There was some type of warfare. There was some type of battle going on in order to get the Persian and Medes empire to be what it is. All right? They had nothing to do with protesting. They didn't protest. America didn't establish their country by protesting. All right? They didn't. They didn't. They tried, and it didn't work. America tried protesting. Remember that, by the way. America did try protesting to establish to quote unquote establish their country. They tried. Look up the Boston Tea Party. That was a protest, right? But it failed. So they had no choice but to go to war with the British and fight the British to establish their own country. So just to make that point real quick, America's protest failed. So as black people and as Latino people and as Native American people, we should maybe have a realization and a light bulb to go off in our heads and be like, well, if protesting didn't work for them, why in the hell would it ever work for us? All right, that's on the sidebar. So it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes. So Darius the king, all right, he set over 120 princes. He puts 120 people in power, which should be over the whole kingdom. So these 120 princes, all right, they're going to be over the entire kingdom of the Persian and Medes. Darius at this point is setting up his government, all right. So if you want to know the breakdown of this, this is Darius, the king of the Persian and Medes Empire, establishing his government and setting up his government to rule over the kingdom that he just took over, which was the kingdom of the Babylonians under the rulership of Nebuchadnezzar, and then soon it was his son Belshazzar. All right, Salaki, I think Belshazzar, Salaki. All right, verse 2. And over these three presidents, all right. So it says over these three presidents, all right. Now, once again, does anybody know? Now, in this case, a president, all right, a president, once again, is a position of power, all right, some authority figure, all right. If you look in the Hebrew, this will translate to like a chief, all right. So when you look into the Hebrew, a president is more so like someone that oversees something, like an overseer or like a chief. Once again, all right, someone that has power, someone that's in a position of authority, all right. And over these three presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. All right. Can I get a breakdown for Matthew 19 and 9? No sweat, I'll get to it. All right. So now it says, then this, all right, then this Daniel, Salakia, and over these three presidents, all right, of whom Daniel was first, right, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. So now Daniel was put in a position over presidents, over chiefs, over overseers in a nation, in a country that was not his. All right. Now that's a very key point to understand, by the way. All right. That's a very key point to understand, by the way. And here's why it's so important, right? Right now, Daniel, okay? All right. Daniel is right now, he's a slave right now. Right now he is a slave of the Persian and Medes, all right? He is in captivity, right? In the Persian and Medes, all right? This is not his country. This is not his nation. This is not his government, right? So with that being said, it's crazy how Daniel was put in charge, right? It's magnificent how Daniel was put in charge over people of their own government, of their own nation. This happens to this day. There are Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans that work in America's government, that have so much power in America's government, that rule over people that are actually of the American government, that are truly Americans, quote unquote, right? That are truly United States citizens, quote unquote. When I say quote unquote, it's because America is really just a melting pot. It's really not a nationality, because all these nations and all these nationalities and all these ethnic groups and all these races of people have been established a very, very long time ago, before America even became a country. All right. So with that being said, that's just on the sidebar. Okay. Let me get Matthew chapter 19 verse 9 for the brother real quick. All right. So can I get a breakdown for Matthew 19 verse 9 and chapter 19 verse 9? Okay. I'll break it down for you. All right. Matthew chapter 19 verse 9. And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife. All right. So it says, I say unto you. Now these words are written in red. All right. This is real quick, real brief. I'm going to break it down so everybody can also learn and understand this. I may have went over this before in other topics too. All right. This is a very good precept, by the way, for anyone also paying attention to the breakdown. This is a very important marriage scripture. This is a very important scripture to bring out when it talks about marriage in the understanding of marriage. All right. So, and I say unto you, this is Christ talking. Whosoever shall put away his wife. So whosoever, right? Who is the whosoever? The whosoever is referring to the Israelites. The whosoever is referring to the Jews. The whosoever is referring to God's chosen people, which are so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. All right. These are the reason why we have to say that is because only blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, right? Well, I should say only the Israelites and only the Jews will literally understand what Christ is talking about here. Because Christ right here is going to be talking about marriage. He's going to be talking about the law when it comes to marriage. And the only people that were given the law by God was the Israelites. Moses was an Israelite. And Moses gave the law to other Israelites. All right? The 12 tribes of Israel. Judah all the way down to Isupk. That's who Moses gave the law to. That's who God gave the law to. Christ was a Jew himself from the tribe of Judah. It was evident that he came out of Judah. Right? That's in the Bible, etc., etc. So we have to know that whosoever is referring to the Israelites, which are now known today as the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. All right, shall put away his wife. So if you put away your wife, what does it mean to put away your wife? Meaning you get rid of her, you leave her. All right, that's what it means to put away your wife. You leave her, you get rid of her, you kick her to the curb. All right, that's what it means to put away your wife. Meaning you no longer consider her to be your wife. That's what it means to put away your wife. That's why whosoever shall put away his wife, all right, shall put away his wife, except. That word "except" is very important to understand. All right, except is a very important word to understand. The Lord uses words purposely, right? The Lord uses certain words purposely to further explain, right? To further put emphasis on what he's trying to tell you and what he wants you to do when it comes to keeping his words, which is the law, statutes, and commandments. Except, if you look this up in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, if you look this up on Google, it literally meaning the exception of, right? The exception of, meaning this is an exception, right? Except, meaning this is the exception, right? An exception is, this is the only time you can do it. That's an exception. Like the only time, like if I tell you this, I'll give you an example. Right? You have to go to your car. Okay, I give you a rule. I give you an order, right? I give you a law to live by. I give you a command to live by. I give you a statute to live by. And that law, that command, and that statute is every day at 6 o'clock, you have to go to your car. Well, what are the exceptions? The only time the exception is, right, if it's raining outside, you don't have to go to your car. All right? That's the only exception. If it's not raining, you better be in your car at 6 a.m., right? So that's what it means to have an exception, all right? This is real quick, all right? So that's what it is. So except, meaning the exception of, all right? It be for fornication. So the only time you can put away your wife, this is the exception. Except it be for fornication. So the exception is fornication. What is fornication? All right, for the breakdown purposes, fornication is unlawful sex. All right? Fornication is unlawful sex. Fornication could be man having sex with a man, a woman having sex with a woman, you having sex with some slut, some whore, some prostitute, some escort, you having sex with a lion or some animal, some pig, some swine, some frog, some bird. Like, it's just unlawful sex. A dad having sex with a daughter, a mother having sex with her son, a brother having sex with her sister. These are lines of incest. So fornication could be also incest. Well, fornication can also mean a man having sex with another man's wife, or a wife having sex with another man if she has a man. These are different examples of fornication, all right, which would be under the lines of adultery, all right. This is what the scripture is going to be breaking down and talking about. So except to be fornication, right? So the only time you can put away your wife except to be for fornication. That fornication is if that woman goes out and have sex with another man or have sex with another woman, you can put her away because she laid down with another man or another woman. That's fornication, all right? Except it be for fornication. Right? So that is the only time you can put away your wife. And shall marry another. So, if you put away your wife and she did not have sex with another man, or she did not have sex with another woman, all right? Remember, sex is marriage, all right? If she did not do these things, and you marry another, so you throw her to the side, even though she didn't go outside of you and have sex with another man, but you still throw her away and you get another woman, the Lord says, commit adultery. You commit adultery if you put away your first wife and she did not have sex with another man, right? She did not have sex with another person outside of your marriage, right? And you throw her away even though she did not have sex with another man, and then you get another woman, right? You commit adultery. All right? That's all that's saying right there. All right? And whoso marrieth her which is put away doth commit adultery. Why? Because she's still married to you. Because that is still your wife. That is still your woman. So the man that has sex with her now, and she goes out and has sex with another man because you put her away, now the man that has sex with her committed adultery. All right? When you put away these women that you have sex with, right, you open up other brothers to go into sin. All right? All right? Now, I'm not going to go too far in detail because I don't want to get into, I would get into brotherhood at this point, okay? And I would get into sisterhood at this point, and etc., etc., but that's the breakdown. So if you have a woman, all right, you cannot put her away unless she commits adultery, which is having sex with another man or having sex with someone outside of your marriage between you and her. Now, that's all that's saying. Now, what also is saying too, right, is not saying you can't get another wife. Because in the Bible, the Lord explains to you if you get another wife, and the Lord also explains to you, right, about having two wives and etc., etc., the Lord breaks that down in the law. Okay, so it's not against God for you to get another wife. The law is you have to keep them both. That's the law. All right, you can't throw one away. All right, etc., etc. That's the breakdown, all right, of Matthew chapter 19, verse 9. Let's go back to Daniel chapter 6, Salaki. All right, so Daniel chapter 6. Let me know also as well, Warrior, if you can. Let me know if you understand the breakdown. All right. If not, we'll go back to it towards the end of class. All right. Or as well, you can call the school. All right. After class is done, and I'll give you a breakdown of it. All right. All right. And go into further detail and etc. etc. All right. So Daniel chapter 6. Daniel chapter 6 verse 2. All right. And over these three presidents. Now, in here right here, Daniel was put over these presidents, all right, whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. All right. Verse 3. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes. So Daniel was literally the HNIC at this time in the Persian and Medes Empire, all right? He was the HNIC. He was the man to go to in the Persian and Medes Empire, right? That was Daniel, all right? That was Daniel. He was that man. He was preferred over the presidents and the princes. This is in verse 3, where in Daniel chapter 6, verse 3, he was preferred, right? He was preferred. He was that man, right? Because an excellent spirit was in him. Daniel had an excellent spirit, all right? And the king thought to set him over the whole realm. So because of Daniel's excellent spirit, because Daniel was that dude and he was that brother, right? He was that man, right? The king thought to set him over the whole realm. Meaning he was going to set him over the entire kingdom, right? Even though, of course, Darius is still the king, right? But right there, second in command was Daniel. He wanted Daniel to be second in command. He wanted Daniel to be like, you know what? You have such an excellent spirit. I'm gonna give you the entire realm to rule over, because you know what? You good. You that man. You that dude, right? Daniel had an excellent spirit. All right. Verse 4. Then the presidents and princes and also that excellent spirit. All right. On a sidebar to let you guys know that excellent spirit will also be more so. How can I say it? That Okay, so that excellent spirit, right? That excellent spirit was the drive that he had, right? That excellent spirit was of that spirit to be able to be extraordinary, to be able to surpass. That's what it means by excellent spirit. He had the spirit to surpass, to be extraordinary. Everything that he did it the best. Everything he put his hands on, right? It was fantastic. It was great. To have an excellent spirit is a very well-known thing to have in Israel. Right? A lot of blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, because we're God's chosen people, right? We have a natural excellent spirit. Anything that we do it the best, right? We make everything just look good. We make everything great. We make everything better, right? This is why Daniel had an excellent spirit, because everything that he did, everything that he touched, he made it better. He was extraordinary. He was surpassing. All right? You understand that? There's certain things that make, like for instance, because of Daniel's excellent spirit, he made the Persian and Medes Empire great. Right? That's why Darius wanted to put him damn near second in charge over the presidents and the princes, because he was so good. Alright? Just like how blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we have such an excellent spirit, we make America great. Like, we have such an excellent spirit to the point where Democrats and Republicans want us to vote for them. Alright? That's how much of an excellent spirit we have. Right? The reason we have such an excellent spirit, America wants us to play basketball for them, and to play football for them, and to play baseball for them. That's why when you're on that baseball field and you watch the Mets, and you watch the Yankees, and you watch the Red Sox, and you watch the White Sox, and you watch the Braves, and you watch whatever the case, all these other baseball teams, I think there's like over 60 of them, whatever the hell it may be, right? You see nothing but Latinos. You see nothing but Cubans and Dominicans and Puerto Ricans. You see nothing but Jose Reyes, Carlos Beltrans, CC Sabatias, all right, Derek Jeters. These were Colombians, Cubans, and Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, and we make America literally great because we have such an excellent spirit. All right, that's something that the Lord gives to us, brothers and sisters, man. All right. All right, verse 4. Then the presidents, and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom. All right. Does anybody know what an occasion is? Does anybody know what an occasion is? Anybody? I'll give it to you for time's sake. But this happens a lot. This happens a lot in any slavery that you have. If you're a so-called black, Hispanic, and Native American, and you have an excellent spirit, and you do your slaves well, right? All right. This happens very often. All right. Okay. Okay, occasionally, all right, occasionally, which I'm not sure if the occasion that's spelled here is the same spelling of occasionally, right? When you say often, so I'm not sure about that. Salakia. This occasion is spelled with an O, so I'm not sure. All right, but this occasion is spelled Occasion. I believe occasionally. I don't know if it's spelled with an O or an A. I'm not sure, but it's not often. All right. So an occasion is like a circumstance. All right, or like a moment of time, right? Oh, right, a moment that you have not like a given moment, but a moment of like a ground or a reason. All right, they found a something that to have an occasion against someone, right? By definition, all right, is like a state of affairs that provides a ground or a reason. So if there's an occasion brought against you, meaning there's a ground. There's grounds of you being maybe let go, or there's grounds of you being promoted. All right, these are terms that are used in a slavery. These are terms being used in government. All right, so when you have like a slavery in the government and you work for the government, or you work for any company in America, or any company, or you slave for any company. When it comes to an occasion, meaning there's something that's going to be held against you. There's some reason or some grounds of you either being being promoted or fired or let go, etc., etc. So it's like an occasion is like a reason. All right, in that context, let me know if I confuse anyone or if anyone understands. Just let me know that. All right, but that's what an occasion is to have a reason against you, or like grounds against you. All right, that's what an occasion is. So the presidents, Daniel chapter 6 verse 4. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom. So they wanted a reason, right? They wanted grounds or a reason to take down Daniel, so he's no longer over the presidents and the princes. All right, that's the reason behind this. But they could find none occasion nor fault. Meaning they could not find any reason or any fault for him to be taken out of the position of being over the three presidents, or over the 120 princes that Darius set over the entire kingdom or the entire realm. All right. Now this right here. All right. I'm gonna continue reading. All right. Neither was there any error or fault found in him. So there was no error or fault found in this man. Daniel was on point. All right. Daniel was on point in everything that he did. There was no error in it. Right. They could not find any fault in him. Daniel was that man. Like he was the brother that you wanted to hire and have the vice president of your company. All right. Like Steve Jobs would want this man if Steve Jobs was alive, but this is talking about Apple, right? Apple would want him vice president. Of course, they're not going to make him president because he's still a slave. And he's still not the same race of people of the nation and country he's working for. But I'm going to make you my top slave. I'm going to make you the head slave. All right? I'm going to make you above certain overseers. I don't know if you remember Django Unchained, right? That movie Django with Jamie Foxx, right? Prime example, right? Of even though he was such a Sambo and Uncle Tom, whatever the case may be, when Samuel Jackson played that part of that house Negro, right? He was put in a position in that house over the slaves, and not just the slaves, but some of the overseers too. Like his opinion mattered over an opinion of an overseer, which was a white male at that time, etc., etc. Think about it that way. All right, that's what Daniel was. All right, but he wasn't. He was no Samuel Jackson though. All right, as in he was no Uncle Daniel was not no Uncle Tom or no Sambo. All right, and we're going to get more into the scriptures, of course, to explain that. But I just want to give you an example of putting someone into power. How America will put someone of not their own race into power, but not really into power. Okay, that was just an example. All right, things like that. So I don't. Another way, probably a better example, but not really, because a lot of black leaders today and a lot of black people that are put into power today are Uncle Tom Negroes and Sambos, etc., etc., and they're traitors to their people. Unlike Daniel, would be Ben Carson. Ben Carson was given a position of power in America because he was so good and he was that man, he was that dude, etc., etc. And so they made him, the man over the the authority over the urban communities, which is just the Black, Hispanic, and Native American community. But he was given a position of power in America's government. All right. So anyone that's under him in the urban communities department, etc., etc., they have to answer to him. All right. That's just an example. All right. Of another race of people putting another race into power, but not completely into power. All right. Verse 5. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel. So these men are discussing amongst themselves, hey man, like these men are conspiring at this point. All right. To make you understand, these men are conspiring against Daniel at this point. If you don't know what it means to conspire, meaning they are plotting against this brother. They are plotting either to take this man down. They're plotting to take Daniel down any means necessary, because they do not like or want the fact that he is damn near second in charge over the entire realm of the person he meets, and he's over these princes, and he's over these presidents, and he's not even a Persian or a Mede. He's a Jew. He's an Israelite. So they just not getting jiggy with this. They not cool with it. They're not okay with this. So these men are literally conspiring against this brother, against Daniel. All right. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel. Meaning, hey man, we're not going to find anything against this brother, which is not. He does everything to the T. He follows the rules. He has order. He has discipline. He has an excellent spirit. Anything that he does it exceedingly well. He's extraordinary. He has the spirit of surpassing. He has an excellent spirit. Right? Except, here's his word except again, right? Even though I was giving a brother a breakdown, right? But here's the exception right here. Except, here's the exception, right? Yeah, we're not going to find any faults or any occasion against him here, but there is an exception. There is a way to find an occasion against this brother. It's not impossible. There is a grounds or a reason that we can find against this brother. Here's the exception. Except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Right? It was always known, right, for the Israelites. Okay, it was always known that if the Israelites were in captivity and if the Israelites were in slavery, right, it was always known that the race or the nation that was over us in our captivity, that was over us in our slavery, would attack us and destroy us when it comes to our way of life, when it comes to our culture, when it comes to our heritage, when it comes to the traditions that were passed down, given from our power, right? Throughout history, there was always some form of some attack to do that to the Israelites. Because the law of God, okay, something to understand, the law of God, all right, the law of the Most High is literally the heritage of the Israelites. If you did not know that. Here's to teach something now. The laws of God is literally the heritage of the Israelites. All right? The laws of God is literally the culture of the Israelites. The laws of God is literally the traditions of the Israelites. It's the laws of God. It's our law. It's something that we have to do, but it's our traditions. It's our culture. It's our heritage. All right? So except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. So this is how they're going to take down Daniel, is by dealing with Daniel according to his law, right, of his God. This is how we're going to trip this brother up. This is how we're going to be able to take this brother down, because we know how he walks. We know how he talks. We know how he dresses. We know what he does every day. Like, if you are an Israelite, right, and you are a Jew, right, people know what you are supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. And possibly, if these people are your enemies, they will use that against you, right? America did it. America knew we were the Jews. America knew. The so-called white man knew that we were the Israelites. So how were they able to control us? How were they able to get the upper hand? How were they able to come against us? Well, once again, it was the laws of God. That's how. They took that away from us. They took away our culture. They took away our traditions. They took away our heritage and pushed their culture and their heritage and their traditions onto us, which would absolutely destroy us, and it would not work. And that's, like, they know. And this is not conspiracy, Salakia. This is not some made up thing that we're talking about. America knows how to continue to destroy blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans in America, which are the children of Israel. And they do it by making you, helping you and assisting you to continue in sin. All right? That's how they do it. That's why they're going to legalize marijuana. All right? First, because they can make money off of it. And two, because they know that it's going to further destroy you. It's going to further destroy us as a nation and a race of people. All right? Moving on. All right? Verse 6. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king and said thus unto him, King Darius, live forever. So they go up to the king. So these princes, these presidents, they go up to the king. They go up to Darius, and they say unto him, King Darius, live forever. This is their salute. They're just saying, King Darius, live forever. That this is just their salute to the king. This is their oath to the king, and this is what they would say to the king. All right. Verse 7. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors and the princes, the counselors and the captains have consulted together. So listen. Like, this is how you know Daniel was that dude. Like, they wanted Daniel to go down. Like, this is how much hatred that these other nations and races of people actually have for us. And this is something in Daniel. You can learn this in Daniel, of how these other nations and other races of people really look at us when it comes to us just being a Jew, when it comes to us just being an Israelite, when it comes to us just being so-called black or so-called Latino or Hispanic or so-called Native American or Nativo Americano, right? It's so, you can see how much hatred they have towards us. Literally, the presidents of the kingdom, not just the presidents, but the governors and the princes, the counselors and the captains have consulted together, meaning they all came together against this brother. That's how much hatred they had for Daniel. That's how much disgust they had for Daniel. Even though it was the king that put him in charge, they had so much hate, right, for Daniel. Like, you're going to hate Daniel for something that your king did. Does that make sense to you? Like, that's how you know, like, this is an important matter to understand. Like, this is the difference between race and nation. Like, your nation and your race matters at this point. This is how much love other nations and races of people have for each other. I mean, I'm going to bring this point out. This is how important it is that these nations and these races of people have so much love for each other that they would rather go after you before they go after their own, even though it was their own that did it. It's right here in the Bible. Did Daniel put himself in charge? Did Daniel put himself over all the presidents? Did Daniel put himself over all the governors and counselors and captains and all the princes? Did Daniel do that? Did Daniel do that himself? No. Darius did. King Darius did, which was a Persian in me. He did it. So why aren't you trying to overthrow Darius instead? He's the one that made the overall decision that Daniel's going to be over y'all. Wouldn't you think that they would go after Darius than they would Daniel? But that's how much love that they had for their own people. Right? That's how much love they had. Like just like America. America has so much love for their people. Instead of blaming Dylan Roof, right? They'll blame the fact that guns is a problem in America. Does everybody understand that? Everybody gets that, right? Like, that's what this is right here. That's what it is right here. Just like America. America's not going to blame Dylan Roof. America's not going to blame any mass murderer that's so-called white or Caucasian, right? They're not going to do it. They love their people so much, and they want to protect their people so much, they're going to blame the weapon instead. Or they'll blame it on some form of mental illness, and etc., etc. Well, this is this right here. They're going to blame, for an example too, Salaki, for an example too. They blame blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans for the crime rate in these cities that are in America, but they're not going to blame the white CIA agents or the white FBI agents that push unregistered illegal firearms into the black, Hispanic, and Native American community. Everybody understands where I'm coming from now, right? I think that may have been a better example and a very key point of what's happening here. All right? The Lord says there's nothing new under the sun. This is what's happening in the Persian and Medes Empire. The same thing is happening, right, in America. They're not going to go after King Darius, even though he made the call. They're going to go after another race of people and make the other race of people to blame. Now they're going to go after Daniel, which is an Israelite. He's a Jew. He's not a Persian to me. All right. Counselors and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree. So now they all came together to make a new rule, right? Like a new regulation in the realm. So like they're going to make a new rule, a new thing over the realm, etc., etc. That's what a statute is. It's a regulation, right? It's a rule, all right? It's like the things that are part of the law, all right? It's not the law itself. Well, it is the law. It's not the, okay. The law, okay, put it this way. The law is you should not murder, but then there's statutes that go under the murder. Like, if this happens, then such and such, or if this happens, such and such and right? It's just branches of the main law. Murder, that's what a statute is, all right? And to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god, so that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. So this decree and this statute said, whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, right? So for 30 days, if you ask anything of a god, right, or a power, or any man, right, or man for 30 days, save of thee, right? Meaning, if it's not of you, of King Darius, right? Meaning, if this petition or this favor or etc. is not being asked from you, right? Save of thee, right? O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions, into the den of lions. So if you are asking a power for anything, right? Now, how would you? Now, does anybody know? Anybody online still paying attention? Real quick, how would you ask the Most High for anything? How would you do it? What is that thing? What is that called? Quickly, if you can. What is that called? But I'm gonna continue reading. But let me know. But what is that called? So if you are asking the Most High or any power, right? All right. Now, of course, in the statute, it's just talking about any God, right? Of course, it's not focused on Daniel's God. It's focused on anyone's God, right? But of course, that fine line statute is to target Daniel. No different than America. America makes laws, they make rules and regulations, they make statutes for all the people, but the focus is to target the Black, Hispanic, and Native American community. Alright? This is happening right here in the time of Daniel. Alright? Nothing new under the sun. And give the aqua the hand after the right. That's called prayer. Right? It's called prayer. So now you guys have the right answer. Keep the word prayer in mind because it's soon going to come up. Alright? But this is something to understand. Alright? There's something to understand, alright? This is happening today. Alright? There are counselors and governors and captains coming together today to conspire against the Black, Hispanic, and Native American community so we do not excel. So they can take that excellent spirit and crush it, but use that excellent spirit as a slave. Alright? Or just take that, I should say really, Salakia, I take that back, really to take that excellent spirit completely away. Salakia, that's the right breakdown, Salakia. To actually take that excellent spirit completely away, that's what they want. Alright? That's what the Persian and Medes want from Daniel. They want to take that excellent spirit away. They want to take it away. They want to destroy this man. They want to take this man down. Alright? This is what's going on. Alright? Verse, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Verse 8. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it be not changed. So they're saying, king, make this a law, make this a rule, make this a regulation, and sign it, right? So it can't be changed. Because as long as you sign it, this rule cannot be changed. Once again, the president does sign bills, all right? America signs bills, and they can't change it. They can only add to it, and etc., whatever the case may be. All right? That it be not changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. So this is going to be the law of the Persians and Medes right here. They want this to be a law, that you cannot pray to your God, petition to a God or man, all right, unless it's to the king. You understand? Unless it's to the king. Alright? Verse 9. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and the decree. So King Darius, he signed that decree. Right? He signed it. Alright? Verse 10. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime. So even though this bill was signed, even though this law, this decree was signed, right? Daniel still went ahead and went to his house with his windows being open, right? In his chamber. So he still went to his house, went into his chamber, right? And his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem. So the windows that was in his chamber, right, was facing Jerusalem. All right? The reason why Daniel's chamber windows were facing Jerusalem, because it was a decree from Solomon for all Israel to pray towards Jerusalem. All right? All right? He kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did before time. Now, this is something that Daniel just did. It's not mandatory, all right, for you to kneel down, nor is it mandatory for you to pray 3 times a day. All right? You can pray 30,000 times a day if you're able to do it, whatever the case may be. All right? But Daniel specifically, this is what Daniel did. All right? This is what the prophet Daniel did. He kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his power. That's what Daniel did. Now, all right, if that's something that you would want to do, right? If you want to start praying 3 times a day because Daniel did it, there's no law against you. There's no law saying that you can't do that. All right. If you want to kneel down and pray, and that's what you want to do because Daniel did it, there's no law against you saying that you can't do it. All right. The main law or the main decree or the main statute for all Israel to do was just to face the east and pray to the Most High. That's all it was. All right. That's all it was. That's all it is. Okay. If you have any more questions about prayer and things like that, just ask. Because of time's sake, I may have to. If you do have any questions, I'll just do it. I'll talk about it in tomorrow's brotherhood class. All right. But there's no real. Or you can also ask the question in the law class. All right. That Captain Natazak Rashad teaches as well, and you can learn more about prayer as well. But this is just something that Daniel did. All right. All right. Verse 11, then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. So these men, right? So then these men assembled. So they obviously knew what they were doing, right? They knew that, so they knew Daniel. They knew what Daniel was about. They knew what Daniel did. So of course they knew that every day, right? This is what Daniel does. So let's meet up at this time in front of this brother's chamber and in front of his windows, and let's catch him in the act of breaking the decree that the king just signed. The purpose of that decree being signed and made is so they can take down Daniel. Right? Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Verse 12. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. So they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. So these brothers were like, oh yeah, we got Daniel now. Let's go to the king and talk about it. Hast thou not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save of thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. So, if any man within 30 days, right, within these 30 days, ask, right, a petition of their God, right, or a petition of a man that's not the king, shall be cast in the den of lions. Isn't this not, is this not a statute that was brought about? Or is this not a law that we made or that you signed? Is this not a statute that you signed and made a decree that everyone is to follow this throughout the entire realm, including your man in charge, including the presidents and the princes and the governors and the counselors and the captains, right? Is this not something that we're all supposed to do? Like, this is what they're talking about. This is what they're coming to the king about. All right? The king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. So he's like, yeah, of course, I just signed it. We just made the law, right? Right? This is what it says, right? This is what it says. This is the law of the Persian and Medes. That altereth not, meaning it does not change, right? Verse 13. Then answered they and said before the king that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah. So here we go. It says that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah. This right here is the captivity of the Jews being in captivity right here. Right here. This is you right here. This is right here. The scriptures letting you know that Daniel is of the children of Israel. He's the children of Judah that are in captivity with the Persian and Medes. So he's a captive. He's a slave right now. All right? He's in captivity. He's in slavery right now. All right? Salaki. Regardeth not thee. So they're like, hey, Daniel does not regard what you just signed and what you put into place. O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. So they're like, hey, Daniel don't care. He's still making his petition 3 times a day to his power. He don't care about your law. He don't care about the laws of the Medes, nor does he care about that decree we just signed, that you signed, right? Like, they're absolutely telling on this brother. The purpose of it is to take the brother down. And not just take the brother down, but get him killed. All right? Because the punishment is to be thrown in a den of lions. I don't know about you, all right? But I know that lions eat people, all right? Lions are known to eat people. If you get thrown in a den of lions or in a cage of lions or like in an enclosed space with lions, that is a death penalty. That's all that is. That's a death penalty. Just like when you strap a man to a chair with metal plates and metal all over him, and then you apply electricity, that's a death penalty. If you make a 20-foot pole or some branch, and then you tie a rope to it, and then you wrap that rope around that brother's neck, and then you drop that brother or you drop that person, that's death. That's a death penalty. So literally, to go against the king's words that he just signed is a death penalty. They're trying to get Daniel a death penalty. All right? This is how much hatred and so much evil that these counselors, these governors, these princes, these presidents, these captains have against Daniel. Even though it was Darius, it was King Darius that put Daniel in charge. Verse 14. Then the king, when he heard these words, was sore displeased with himself. Right? So he was sore displeased with himself. The reason why he was so displeased is because he's coming to the realization that, oh man, the man that I put in charge, right? You know what I'm saying? The man that's the head dude that does everything in an excellent spirit, right? I just got him killed, right? I just got him killed. Like, damn, I wasn't thinking that Daniel does serve another God, and he has a routine every day to go into his chamber and face the east and get on his knees and pray 3 times a day. The king wasn't thinking about that at that time. He's a king, right? He has so much other stuff to think about. The least of his worries was what Daniel did on his off time. And, I mean, everybody understands that, right? Like, think about it. No one cares about what you do on your off time. Daniel doesn't come to his slavery and say that he's an Israelite, he's a Jew, and he worships God, right? It's because he's hated so much, right? These people wanted him dead, so they studied him in what he did outside of work or outside of his slavery. That's all. No one knows that you're an Israelite when you go to your slavery. That's one thing that we got to understand. No one has to know you are an Israelite. No one has to know. And that's like you going to your job and saying, yeah, I'm black. Well, duh, we see that you're black. You get my point? Like, duh, we see that you're Latino. Like, duh, we see that you're Native American. Why are you coming here telling us this? We don't care. We just want you to flip burgers, file papers, build a building, whatever the hell it may be. We do not care. All right? We do not care. All right? So you don't have to go to your slavery talking about I'm an Israelite. We know that you're an Israelite. All right? At least you know that you're an Israelite. No one else has to know you're an Israelite. No one has to know. All right? Now, no one's saying and also on the sidebar, no one's saying that it's a rule for you not to tell people that you're Israelites. All right? Just be more cautious on what you say to people at your slavery. This is UPK, this is One West. All right? When we go to our slavery, we go to our slavery to slave, not to talk about that the white man is the devil and God chose us to be above all people and etc. etc. That's not what we come to this slavery to do. We come here to slave, get money, pay bills, and build our nation. That's all. That's the only reason why we come here. We're not here to deliver other blacks, Hispanics, and Latinos out of slavery at our slavery. That's not what we're going to do. There's a time and place for everything. You can easily talk to a trustworthy brother and sister that actually may be interested, all right, into what you may believe in and things like that. Because of course, because of your lifestyle, there will be questions. They're going to wonder why you don't go to the Christmas party. All right, just tell them that you don't celebrate Christmas. Eventually, a trustworthy brother and sister is going to be more curious about why the hell you don't go to Christmas parties. Right? Then there's other brothers and sisters that are going to be like, I don't care if they come to the Christmas party or not. I don't care. But there's going to be one brother and sister that might be trustworthy and might want to know what the hell you're doing. What the hell are you not doing at the Christmas party? Because maybe they don't celebrate Christmas either, and they're probably wondering why the hell you don't either. Then y'all build and y'all realize, and now the brothers and sisters in class, etc., whatever the case may be. But that is determined on how you go about the situation. Every scenario is different. I'm just letting you know that it is not wise for you to talk about how the white man is the devil at your slavery and how God chose us and all this stuff. Just wire up your panels, bend your conduit, all right? Build your foundations, file your paperwork, all right? Make your phone calls. Just be a slave at your slavery, all right? But that's what Daniel did. He went to a slave and he was just a slave. But on his off time, he served the Lord. All right? That's what he did. All right? Was sore displeased with himself and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. So, it says set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. So his heart was set to deliver Daniel from the death penalty. He did not want Daniel to be thrown in the lion's den. That's all it was. All right? And he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. So the king did all that he could to deliver Daniel from the lion's den. All right. Verse 15. Then these men assembled unto the king and said unto the king, Know, O king, that the law of the Medes and Persians is, that no decree nor statute which the king establisheth may be changed. So they're reminding the king, like, there's nothing you can do. Remember, this is the law. You can't change it. Verse 16. Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel. Right? Then the king commanded. So he's like, all right. So the king commanded, and they brought Daniel. So they went to go get Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. So they took Daniel and they threw Daniel, the prophet Daniel, into the den of lions. So now Daniel's in the lion's den right now, full of lions, right? Full of goddamn lions. Daniel is there, all right? And Daniel is there, all right? And cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, Thy God whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. So even the king said, even the king, Darius said to Daniel, the God that you pray every day, he will deliver you. Listen, even King Darius, right? Even King Darius, he was a Persian in Mede, right? Had faith in the power that Daniel served, right? Because now the only reason why is because he did not want his best slave and his best captive to be put to death by lions. All right. Verse 17. And a stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den. So the stone was pretty much like, let's think of like a decent sized rock that would be able to be pushed, right, by a lot of men, of course, all right, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 men, all right, pushed in front of the den so there could be no escape from any brother or any man that would be thrown in that den of lions. That's what the mouth of the den is. It's like the opening of the den, all right? And the king sealed it with his own signet and with the signet of his lords, that the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel, right? So they sealed it with their own signet, all right? Verse 18. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. So he stayed up all night fasting, meaning he was not, anything that he was doing before, he stopped. And he couldn't even sleep because he was so worried about Daniel being in the lion's den. Right? He wants Daniel to survive the lion's den. All right? Verse 19. And the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste unto the den of lions. So when the morning struck, early in the morning, the king went straight to the lion's den. So of course to see if King not King Daniel, King Darius went to see if, of course, the prophet Daniel was still alive. All right. Verse 20. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice unto Daniel. So he cried with a lamentable voice, meaning he cried with I put sound and sad together. Like with a sound voice, like a voice that shows pain. He was voicing a voice. He sounded someone that was in pain, someone in worry, someone that's either sad or crying. Everybody knows what that type of sound sounds like concerned, right? That's lamentable, right? Coming from the word lamentation or lament, right? being in pain or sad, etc., etc. Salaki. And the king spake and said to Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? So this was the question. He's asking, did your powers keep you alive? That's all he's asking. Did the God that you serve every day, that you put your absolute faith in, that you completely trusted in, that you completely believe in, did he protect you from these lions? Did he save you from this death penalty? Did he do it? 21. Verse 21. Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. Once he said that because this was the salute, right? That all the governors and all the presidents and princes and governors and counselors and captains would say when greeting the king. O king, right? Live forever, right? So this was a sign, obviously, that Daniel's still alive. Through the night, Daniel survived. And here's why. Verse 22. My God has sent his angel and has shut the lions' mouths, that they have not hurt me. So the Lord sent an angel to protect Daniel, to shut the mouths of the lion, that they have not hurt me. For as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. So the Lord sent an angel to protect Daniel because he didn't do anything wrong, and he was serving the Lord. Like, this is why it's so important for us to serve the Lord, because the Lord will send angels to keep you protected. Daniel kept the law. That's why, like, they were trying to take Daniel down through the law of his God. But Daniel kept the law. He kept God's law, statutes, and commandments. And because he kept the law, he was protected by the Most High sending an angel and closing the mouths of the lions. Now how did the Lord do that? I'll tell you how. It's not magic. That the Lord closed the mouths of the lions. He made sure the lions were not hungry that day. They were good. They didn't have to eat that day. They were not hungry. They were good. They were straight. All right? Verse 23. Then was the king exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. So because Daniel believed in the Most High, there was not a scratch on that brother when they took him out of the den. Verse 24. And the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the den of lions, them, their children, and their wives. And guess so the people. So and the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel. So the men that were brought, the Lord, okay, it's like a king, Darius, commanded to grab and gather those men that accused Daniel. And not just those men, right? And they cast them into the den of lions. So they say, get those men and cast them into the den of lions. But not just those men. Them, their children, and their wives. So their children and their wives went with them in that lion's den, commanded by the king. Right? And the lions had the mastery of them, and break all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the den. So those lions when they were thrown in that lion's den, immediately the lions pretty much said, amen, so be it, let's eat. Alright? Right? Listen, them lions ate them, their children, and their wives. Now, does this sound like a children's book to you? Right? Does this sound like a children's book? Like, think about it. This is a children's book now. Being ate by lions is not a children's book. Alright? This is a book. This is a historic record of our people, of how important it is to serve the Lord. Right. Kanakwa tore it up. Ate them all to bits. It was munching time. It was ding 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 dinner. That's what it was. This is not a children's book, This ain't a children's book, Akwa. This is a book explaining, right, how the Lord is going to protect his people that loves and serves him. That's what Daniel chapter 6 is about. Verse 25. Then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. Verse 26. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and steadfast forever, in the kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. So the king even made a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear the God of Daniel. Right? You are to fear the God of the Israelites. That's heavy right there. The Persian and Medes king had to say, hey, for now on, if you want to live as a Persian and Mede, if you want to stay alive, at the minimum, you have to fear the God of Daniel. Because we damn near all bore a record of how Daniel was saved in a den of lions. Because he served his God every day. Meaning fear. Alright? Fear him. Fear the God of Daniel. Listen, this God was the God of Daniel. Another point to make. It wasn't the God of the Persian and Medes. It was the God of Daniel. Meaning that right there, that's possessive right there. God wasn't, listen, the most high power in this Bible wasn't the God of everybody. He was a God of he was the God of a specific nation in the race of people. Alright? Just on the sidebar right there. Verse 27. He delivered and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who have delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. This is the reason why King Darius had to say, hey, out of all the people in my kingdom, at the minimum, man, fear the God of Daniel. Because he saved him from the den of lions, from the power of the lions, from being ripped and torn to pieces like them governors and council members and captains and presidents and princes that were thrown in that den that came up against Daniel. Alright? Verse 28. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Salakia. Alright? So this right here, we kind of went over time because I want to finish out Daniel chapter 6 completely. Alright? So this is the breakdown of the lion's den and how important it is to serve the Lord, man. If we come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments, the Lord will save blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans just like he saved Daniel in the lion's den. Everybody understands? Alright? No sign of Christ. With that, Amadim, which means to stand. Alright. Men of Israel, we're going to give a courteous salute to the brothers. Men of Israel, Amadim Shabbat, Amadim, Barak, Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai Brakatah, Yadi Matah, Sar, La Akwati, which means turn and face the sisters. Men of Israel, we're going to give a courteous salute to the sisters. Men of Israel, Amadim Shabbat, Amadim, Barak, Yahweh Shemar Alathan, Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, Yadi Matah. With that, class dismissed.